Hey guys, we're back updating the power rankings for the Amazing Race 37 following episode 8, which was another pretty interesting episode with a pretty interesting result, but we'll get it to enough. But we have 16 to talk about, and as we waste more time, let's go into the video. So starting off at number 6, we have the latest boots from the season, and here we have Melinda and Erica. And I was a bit wrong about them. I did say earlier that I was expecting them to have a deeper run, possibly being like the third place team, considering they were getting decent content, all things considered. And I feel like their edit was not too dissimilar from the likes of Nick and Mike, who I also had somewhat high until they were taken out of the race. And if we're looking at their performance across the actual leg, I think there was definitely signs of them going downhill, with them obviously getting lost in multiple opportunities. Also, with there being so much setup to Carson and Jack having this comeback, it just made sense that Melinda and Erica would be the most likely teams to fall victim to that. And I think in general, Melinda and Erica were just kind of fine on the season, where while they had a couple of okay legs, I feel like for the most part, they were not a very consistent team. And even if they had gotten to the final leg, they were not a team that I was very high on from a race standpoint. It was more so like what I thought about them in terms of how they were being presented on the show than we thought that they had more legs in them. But obviously they're not out of the race, so they're here at number 6. And with that, we have 5 teams left in the race to talk about. As usual, I'll be ranking them based on how likely I think they are to win the race, based on their edit and current race position. But number 5, the team that I believe is the least likely to win from this point on, is Brett and Mark. And again, I know I've gotten some criticism for my placements of them in previous episodes, and I do promise that it's not because I don't like them or anything. I actually have nothing against any of these teams, if I'm being honest. But I just feel like they're a team that, despite them doing all right on the race, I just feel like we're not learning anything about them. I feel like they're a team that hasn't gotten nearly as much development as the other teams within this final 5, which makes me think that they're probably not on the best course to win the season. Now, they obviously do have a pretty strong leg here where they end up, despite starting off in second place, they end up getting to first place by the first road marker, and they really are able to maintain that for the rest of the leg here. And the show doesn't even try to hide the fact that they were clearly ahead of the other teams, to where it was pretty obvious that they were going to win the leg. And again, I do think that they have proven themselves to be alright racers by the end of it, where I feel like they have picked up some steam. However, I feel like considering that they haven't gotten as much personal content as the other teams up to this point, and I feel like they're just being shown because they're obviously ahead of the pack, I just feel like they're going to come up short by the end of it. And again, it's nothing against them on any level. I don't really have a bone to pick with any of these people. I just feel like of these 5 teams, they're the least likely to win. They're the team that I have the least confidence in to win, considering how they've been presented on the show, which is why they're here at number 5. Now moving on to number 4, and this is actually a change that I made compared to last week. Not so much because this team did too much to move down, but because I feel like another team went up. By number 4, we do have Jonathan and Anna. And again, I feel like my view of them hasn't really changed that much, where I feel like, again, they did fine in the leg here, where they were third place for pretty much the entire time. And I feel like they're a team that is definitely one that has the potential to make it to the final leg. But I feel like in terms of their edit, they have fallen off a little bit here, where, again, they did still get some stuff in this episode with them, like trying to help out Alyssa and Josiah initially in the library task and saying how it's good karma, which is something at least, but I feel like they're a team that has kind of been falling behind from a personal content standpoint. I feel like at this point in the race, I feel like edit is playing a much bigger role in how I feel like these teams are going to do moving forward. And it's for that reason that I do have to slip them down here to number 4. Now moving on to number 3, and as I alluded to a moment ago, this team has moved up compared to last week, and here we have Han and Holden. And I actually feel like they have been on the uptick in terms of their edit, where we've been getting a lot more personal content from them over the last few weeks. Or even in this episode, we got to talk about how Holden was in military school and how they had spent years apart. And there really has been this focus about how they've been improving their relationship, how the race has really improved their relationship there. And again, I feel like that's definitely something that could be a noteworthy narrative, especially if they were to be like these underdog winners. And I feel like considering that we have been getting it more in these last few episodes, I feel like it's definitely a major factor to have them above Jonathan and Anna there. Now again, in terms of their actual race ability, I think they're still kind of inconsistent, where they spend a good chunk of the leg in 4th place, but eventually gets passed by Carson and Jack, to where they end up being second to last by the end of it. And they also had that entire scene of where they were helping out Melinda and Erica initially in the library task, but then later switched to helping Carson and Jack once it became apparent that Carson and Jack were starting to figure out the puzzle there. So again, that's at least something to bring up here, but really I think Han and Holden probably have more potential now to make it to the final leg, especially with the likes of Nick and Mike and Melinda and Erica going out back to back. Though it could also be said to them being like these 4th place finishers as well. So really I could definitely see them going a couple different ways here. But I feel like considering they have been getting stronger edits as of late, it was enough to have them one spot higher here at number 3. Now moving on to number 2, and we have the same top 2 as last week, and unsurprisingly, it is the same order, but number 2, we do have Alyssa and Josiah, and I feel like Alyssa and Josiah are a team that are probably the most consistent team from a race standpoint at this point, while still having plenty of decent personal content, where we once again get talk about them wanting to start a family, and how the money will help them pay off all these student loans that they have, which is pretty noteworthy there. They obviously end up getting second place, though to be fair, a lot of that was due to them going for the express pass that allowed Brett and Mark to pass them, so that's at least something to bring up. And they obviously still have that express pass to use in Fruit Your Legs, which is obviously pretty good there. But I feel like they're a team that has the performance of Brett and Mark at this point in the season, while having the edit to back them up, where I feel like we know more about them. I feel like they're a team that definitely feels more consistent across the entire race compared to Brett and Mark. And they're a team that I feel like has more setup to win from a story standpoint, where they have like this personal content about them, like wanting to start a family and what the money will mean for them. So I feel like all that's pretty good. Though I still feel like the number 1 team has clearly edged them out from an edit perspective, which is why they're here number 2. And now at number 1, the team that I believe is the most likely to win the Amazing Race 37 at this point is still Carson and Jack. And I did have a debate here over whether to have them at number 1. As I feel like on one hand, I feel like the show really propped them up over the course of the episode, with Phil talking at the beginning of the episode about whether Carson and Jack can pull off the greatest comeback in Amazing Race history, which made it pretty obvious that they probably were. And then obviously they end up doing pretty well in the library task that allowed them to eventually pass Han and Holden and Melinda and Erica. And then they eventually are able to scrape together a 4th place finish from a 6th place start, to which Phil calls this the greatest comeback in the Amazing Race history, which, sure, I guess, but I think it just shows that the show is really propping up Carson and Jack here. They also get a lot of personal content, talking about how they can use the power delusion at their will, and getting more personal content about how they became best friends and how he came out as gay. I think there's a lot to break down there from a edit standpoint, and I feel like the fact that the show was really propping up how big of a comeback it was for them, even though it wasn't really that big of a comeback, it was just them coming from last place to 4th place. I still think the show is clearly meant to be setting them up as these clear underdogs to take down the likes of a Brett and Mark or an Alyssa and Josiah. And I feel like at this point, I still feel pretty confident that they'll go on to win the season from this point, which is why I still have them here at number 1. And there we go. That'll do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. Really helps with the channel. Now we'll be back again next week to update the Power Rankings again, so you can look forward to that. I'm still covering Survivor 48 and doing Power Rankings on that show, so be on the lookout for that. I'm on Patreon and a VV2 membership, so if you want to consider supporting the channel, you can do so by clicking the link in the description. And you can also join the Discord server by also clicking the link in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming our way, but for now, that is the video. See ya.